Hello, everyone. My name is Angela, middle initial K, last name Durden. And this is the second episode in the interview of Joshua H. Batchelder. I'm going to go ahead and add to the stage the interview that I did with him this morning. Remember, we do it in his house, and that makes it easy for everybody. So here we go. Good morning, Joshua. How are you today?
Well, doing okay. And how about yourself, Angie?
I'm doing pretty good too. Doing
That's
pretty
good.
good too. Yeah. So our last time that we sat down together, which has been a couple of weeks ago, hasn't it?
I think so,
Maybe,
yes.
maybe a couple of weeks ago. Uh, we ended on a spiritual note. You had said some things about your spiritual journey. And what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about your father before we get into that because he's a big part of that spiritual journey.
My father,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
I lost him at 16, and I think I've spent the rest of my life chasing who he was at various periods in his life that I didn't know, and he didn't uh, live long enough to teach me the Bible that he read 3 times, that he was taught by his uncle, Charlie, and my great uncle, who went to 107 and a half. So it's been quite a journey, and I began on a secular note and reading. He got me started reading, but I didn't do any serious reading till I got in the Air Force. 3 years after he died, when the Korean War started, 3 months later, after my left first year, finishing first year of college at Northeastern Boston, and my twin brother and I joined the Air Force and went and that it began an exciting journey. And that's when I had time to read, and I read and wrote down everything that was impressed me and paid attention to those people's personalities
And,
that I wanted to emulate.
and okay, so let's back up a little bit. Okay. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about the relationship you had with your father. I know he was 16 when you were 16 when he died, but how did you find out he died? Did your mother tell you?
Ah, yes, it's just a good example of how it affected me when my mother invited me in to see him in the bedroom where he'd passed. I wouldn't go in. And
Do
at
you
the
do
funeral, I would not look in the casket.
what was going through you that you didn't want to see your father
It was blocked
dead?
out. I couldn't accept it, quite frankly. I just
Uh-huh.
didn't accept it. And that's all I could look at in the later years, over the years, as I thought about it, but I didn't face it.
So tell me, I know that at some point that you and your father did things together. Y'all chopped
Yes.
wood. Tell me what y'all.
Well, born in the middle of the Depression, okay, about a year and a half after my favorite sister Nancy, a few days after the crash in 29, we came along, a twin and myself, and uh, my father had to work real hard then. I think at that point, being the last of 6 children and a twin, that um, I took whatever time I could get, and he was busy working in Boston office and going 20 miles back and forth to this little town where my mother, before she would marry him back in 21, 10 years earlier than my birth, uh, when he was about 15 years older than she, and she was 29 at least, according to what she said. Many young ladies are not, they're going to be married before 30, and that's a requirement of sorts, expectancies. So
what did your father do?
he was an attorney. He was a Harvard attorney who uh, was an intellectual, really, a big reader. And as I said earlier, he read the Bible 3 times. I think because his uncle Charlie, when Henry Oscar Houghton Myth Publishing, when he died, he had been three decades teaching the Bible for boys' Bible class, and Uncle Charlie took over when about 10 years after Uncle Charlie began teaching the Bible class. My uh, Henry Oscar Houghton, the founder of Houghton Method Publishing, he died in August. My father entered undergraduate at Harvard in that same month of August of 1895.
Wow. So your father started college in 1895,
That's correct.
and you were born 36 years later.
Yes, he would, and that's right. So you take and add 23 to born in 1875, and you add 31. What do you get? 31 to 23 years to the year uh,
Was it 18?
to 1900.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So you take that 19 and 23,
Right, right,
you're up to about uh, right. So
right. So,
he
so,
married about 44, and he was 54 when my brother and I were born.
right, right.
So I
Eh,
followed him around like a little dog. Everything he got his exercise on weekends down in the family woodlot, and I followed him around like a little dog. Everything he did, I stayed. We had coffee over the fire in the morning. And he told me about being out Wild West a year after undergraduate training about the turn of the century of 1900. I think his grandfather, the sea captain. Uh, Financed him, I think, going west to become a cowboy. So he was under the stars, and we heard all about these stories. So I listened to everything he said carefully. And and he was working down at that woodlot, when he was getting his exercise with the axe, he called it. Then I stayed with him. If others in the family, other of the five other children, come to see him down at the woodlot, they never hung around. I hung around, and like a little dog, I was there for him.
so
That's
you,
how close we were for it. And he went to Boston sometimes on the weekend doing his work. He'd take me in with him. So uh,
you
I
had a
every
nice,
opportunity to be with him, I grabbed.
so you had a really
We
close
were connected.
relationship. Yes,
And by
connected.
the way, our personalities, which we may talk about later, basic personalities were the same, as so were the Uncle Charlie that he was very close to, who lived on in 7.5. So we were deep feelings that emotional memory was long, which I saw in handwriting, and by other means it was confirmed. So those things built into us. So the understanding was enhanced. So when I started studying him for the rest of my life, and particularly later on as I became an author, and I started writing memoirs and everything, then I got into digging into more facts and figuring out when he was single between marriages before he met my mother, a Canadian. He came out of finishing law school 1 year after he came back from the West, and he had a hard time studying, but he was obviously a good student and done a lot of things. So basically, uh, he meets 17 years later after this showgirl. He was in the boarding house about 3 years later. I found out by looking at the records of the city without Minnie Priest. Sounds like something out of Popeye, she was, but she was a gold digger, according to others in the family. That didn't last, so then he was single a long time, and so was I between marriages. We'll get into some other time.
Well, that's just showing you how much y'all kind of, don't you find that there's a lot of people who uh, are, their life patterns seem to follow the same ones as their
Yes, I
parents.
have anecdotal evidence points to something very interesting, and that area deserves discussion by itself almost.
Yeah. Well, just make a note of that, and we'll have that one day.
Yes,
How's that?
yes.
So your father read the Bible 3 times. Did he ever make any? Did y'all ever have any spiritual discussion?
No,
I mean, by
not really,
spiritual,
not really. And I think he would have gotten into it when I was older. And I've read since that time many times. When I first picked up the Bible, it was foreign to me. Yeah, what is this? And maybe I got a hold of the wrong Bible. I don't know what it was, but I started to because I knew it planted in my mind that he read it 3 times. If he read it 3 times, it must be important. And that stayed with me through my life, my whole life. So subsequently, I did get into it, and in recent years, appreciate it, and I'm drawn to it very easily. and in classes and men's group I was in, and other things another time we might talk about. So the journey started secular interest in spiritual things, Indian, studied all
Okay,
religions. I read about all religions.
let me just back up here for a
Yes,
second. You keep saying secular religion, in religion. Um, when you say secular religion, what do you mean? Did you have just an intellectual interest in various
I thank you
religions?
for asking the question, okay? Because I have to, the word itself was foreign to me,
Which word?
secular.
Why was it
But I
foreign to
was,
you?
because I never, it didn't connect with me. I didn't chase it. But what I really felt from the very beginning of my life when I was conscious and started to become a man when he died, really, then I knew I was on earth for a purpose. So I've always had a belief early from the time I got serious. I had a real belief in that I was here for purpose. So
Okay,
I started with that from that belief. And I collected all the things in my reading started heavy duty in the Air Force whenever there was time off. Then that reading and everything I wrote down in my little daytime a book that I've kept for years and years, beginning just before about the time I went in the Air Force. I started records, but I started in 1960 using these daytimers, 2 pages to a day. Anything that spiritually connected with me, sayings, humorous and otherwise,
I've seen you
I'd
in.
write it
Uh,
down and they
uh,
exist today. For example, here is an example right here. And I have boxes of these that have filled up and 2 pages to a day, appointments and everything, and
going back how many
people that
years?
impressed me, uh, quotations that impressed me, Henry Ford, Dale Carnegie, Think and Grow Rich, all these books of how to become better, how to grow.
How many years have you been doing that?
I've been doing that since I got in the Air Force.
Which was when you were 20,
I was 19. I
19?
joined it one year after the end of one year at Northeastern. I joined it later on. Of course, I
So
transferred to Harvard
I,
later when I came back for
John,
5.5 years
I know,
active duty.
I know. So that's over 70 years, or about 70 years, or
What's that?
a
Yeah,
little over
yeah.
70 years.
If you
You've
added
been
it up,
doing
I
that
didn't
sort of
stop
thing.
to add it up.
Well,
It's a long time.
94 minus just so for
So I've
70
been on that journey.
for
I
73
called it
years.
secular because the serious Bible study, I kind of connect with the spiritual, but really, I was spiritual. I wanted to do the right thing. I always, from the early years, on a good train where my mother made us, my twin brother and I go to Sunday school. Jesus loves this, I know, for the Bible tells me so. I got enough of a start there. I think that little ones to him behold, etc., etc. Most people have Christianity. I've heard that. So I got a good start, really, for being comfortable in the stresses of being a young man on active duty and faced with hazardous situations as I started to fly and everything, and that sort of thing. So it helped me carry through to make good decisions that came to me when we traveled around the world for 11 years for the Air Force. So situations and I seem to make the decisions that helped me to survive. And the rest of it, I trust to God.
Well, that's a big statement, and it's kind of open ended. When you say you had enough spirituality on your own to make some good decisions,
Yes.
but the rest you left up to God. What does that rest? The rest it what in your mind is that?
Oh, you said risk?
No, rest. The
Re-
rest is up to God.
oh,
What do
yes. The
you mean
rest
by
is
the
up
rest
to
of it?
God. That's right. So I have a faith, a belief, being here for purpose, that from the early years, I wanted to live like Christ. I want to
Okay.
copy the behaviors he had. That I had before I ever got into serious Bible study.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you knew enough about Jesus that you knew what he was like.
I was started on the right path, so perhaps you couldn't say it was all secular. That's
Okay,
that's
okay.
that's why I appreciate your question, because I only studied the darn word secular in later years, so it was not meaningful to me, that word at all.
Well, in a way, I can kind of sort of I want to talk about this just for a
Yes,
minute
thank you.
because there are a lot of people in the world that are very spiritual, but they don't think of it in the terms of God, but they have those feelings of
And an example of what you're saying, the Bible, and even today, I'm learning so much in the recent years of this beautiful unity class I'm going to into this Methodist church, the First Tuck United Methodist. Uh, I am looking up. I want to know, and I want to get it clear, the terminology. So the Bible terminology, only in recent years have I really chased an understanding of so many things that I look to others that I respect, including you, it happens to be, for your knowledge of the Bible, Angie, and I appreciate that. So I am humble for all that I don't know. That is to understand the Bible well. I've collected books everywhere God puts in front of me, and I pick them up and I'm interested. So, but there is a whole lot of language and understanding of what took place centuries ago and recent
yes,
centuries.
that you're trying to learn
Put it
that
all together.
terminology now.
I put it all
But
together intellectually and spiritually.
right. But for years you've been using that term secular. And now
Not that
and
many years.
well, yes, but when you've been describing it to me,
Yes,
uh, that when you look back, you were more secular.
yes,
And here's the thing, even though you were more secular, and by that I mean you weren't active in churches
right. That's
and
right.
that sort of thing, you still had a spiritual core, and
Thank you. Thank you.
that spiritual core is in it's in all humans,
Yes, thank you.
and some show their spirituality through secular means. That is, they treat their employees well. They are a good employee. They help out their neighbors, whether they go to church or not. They have this spirituality to be the best they can be for the benefit of
I
others.
read a book that helped me. This is years ago
Uh
when I
huh.
was in the Air Force. I read a book that uh, described all the different religions, and some being more feminine, like Christianity, some not. It's not Nazi, that's just one example. Active. They worship being active, and that would fit me more, and contemplative. And being an introvert, which I've certainly understood in the recent years because I was one, I always have been. So I need time alone like introverts do to make sense out of things. So that is another reason I've never been one. And I came from early New England Congregational, one of the pilgrims, the early Pilgrim Church of England Congregationalism is kind of like um, the small town I came up didn't even have a Catholic church in it. So they had a number of churches, Presbyterian, Congregational, others, but it was not dictatorial. It wasn't harsh. It didn't put the fear of God in me, and things that some people advocate is terribly important to get there, if you will. So I'm still sorting out a lot of things and open, and am confident that I'm on a good path because things, when they're going quite smoothly, I'm getting answers. I wake up early in the mornings like I never used to, sleep right through used to, but now I get things like I got less than a year ago. It came to me at 2 in the morning, and that was, be still and know that I am God. And then another one I put in my book in February, on an important day in February religiously, and that was, praise God from whom all blessings flow. Dot, 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 you. So when I autographed my book, the modern day Renaissance man I did it for most of those I autographed. I put that phrase in, and the dot, 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 from whom all blessings flow, was the person I gave the book to. Praise God, because they're close to me. They mean a lot to me, my loved ones. So being able to say it when I give that book to people and my family and close associates, then that's what I felt. So I write down when I autograph a book what comes to me to fit. Doesn't have to be the same every time.
So your book, The Modern Day Renaissance Man, A Spiritual Journey,
Yes.
which I will be linking in the show notes below when I put this up on Substack and on my YouTube channel, which I'm making a playlist just for your videos that we're going to be doing. So the link will be in there to that book. But when we were playing around with various covers and this sort of thing, and just trying to decide on the title of it, you came up with. You said there's something missing, and it's a spiritual journey, because it's a spiritual journey. And I'm seeing around the world there is a resurgence of spirituality, of people needing overtly to practice in their life this spirituality that they have felt and then have pushed down for so long because of the negative forces in the world. So now how do you do that? And what do you do? And that's why the book excuse me is so good, because it shows that there's not you don't just take this one solid line straight path uh, to having a spiritual life.
I can't say that I've gone on a straight path.
I know.
I have been, while I'm a homebody, and you could, if you want to go and talk about being a Taurus, I'm a homebody, but I'm also Sag rising for the, if you want to define it, have some fun. Basically, then I've loved travel. I've traveled more than my father or Uncle Charlie ever did. They were stuck mostly in Boston area, in Cambridge and Sudbury, the little town west of Boston. My mother wouldn't marry him till he bought a house in the country fit to raise children. So I know it was keeping him away from any nice ladies he met during that 17 years.
She was a smart woman.
He was single.
She was a smart woman.
She was the second Canadian, and he did what she said. You know, he bought and he had to commute on the train back and forth. Or on Sundays, driving when the train wasn't running to Boston. That's when I'd ride in there with him.
Aww.
Other than that, he ate after us at the evening, but he still found time to read his children books.
Oh, how about that?
And tell them stories. He was a great storyteller. And I think I've probably become a storyteller myself.
Well, you have.
A raconteur.
A raconteur. You are second generation raconteur.
From the French. By the way, Uncle Charlie was a Frenchman. Probably, yes, Theory, Thierry. And they shortened it. They got rid of one of the R's. The French do that. I think he was a Huguenot, French Huguenot or something like that. Yeah. So, anyway, that's another story.
Right. So, this spiritual journey of yours has gone around the bend and up the mountain and down into the hollows, and now you seem to be honing in on your target.
Thank you. I want to tell you about a book, Candide. My first year of college, before the Korean War started, I had French literature, Candide, by Voltaire. I've always liked Voltaire for the clarity and the ease of understanding what he said. He is special in history, Voltaire. And it's a little volume. So I was able to read French. I had 2 years of French and Latin, 2 years in high school. But I struggle still with the language. I couldn't speak fluently and easily, but I could dope it out reading. Candide, he traveled the world, and all kinds of mean things happened to him. Like he tried to help somebody overboard ship, coming up from falling overboard in the ship, and the guy pulls him in such a way he ends up in the drink, and the one he's saving is in the ship. Okay, so he goes through all of these mean experiences in life, traveling. When he comes home, and he discovers where I am now. He discovers when he comes home Let us cultivate our garden became the thing. You can travel the world and everything can happen to you, and it's good at home to come home again.
Yeah.
So uh, that there's not a bigger, better world out there than there is back home with family.
Well, everywhere you go, there's families there that are sitting in their place doing their thing, and personally myself, I don't like to do a lot of traveling. My body just doesn't like it.
Mhm.
My mind can travel further, faster, cheaper than my body can, and it gets along just fine. But everywhere you go, you find the same people serving you coffee, serving you tea, wanting to cook for you, wanting to talk about things. And a lot of people think travel is only for seeing the mountains or the
Well, I
ocean.
love it, and I sure took to it with the Air Force. To
Yeah.
me, when I applied very successfully at life insurance, $1 million roundtable for a string of years, and so when I took a trip that was like 5 or 7 days to Europe and back, and then the Far East with the old slow airplanes that I navigated, and it was like a 12 or 13-day trips to Vietnam and other Japan and other places. So I got to see a lot of things, and I love that travel, and it took me away from that was my paid vacation. I'm a Scotsman, and my mother would remind me, "You're half Scot, you know." So, so
Wait. Does she have a Scottish accent?
oh,
Or,
did she have a
oh
Scottish
my.
accent? She and her sisters, her father told her up in Nova Scotia all they could do was fish, maybe, and hunt. And he told all the girls and one son, go to America, you got a future. So I think maybe she married my father because she became a citizen and all that stuff. And they all became nurses or teachers when they came, those five sisters, including my
And your
mother.
mother, your mother was a nurse?
She was an operating room nurse. She was uh, uh, she took care of the behavior, okay, at home. She managed we children. She was very objective, very psychic too, and great. None of the children are going to die on my watch. Back then, half of the children born in the 30s when I was born were dead within a year. So it paid off to have more children. And a lot of times they wouldn't name those children until they're about 6 months or a year old. The kid not
Oh,
even have a name. That's what I read about. It was very interesting. So you read about what it was like back then, and it's very interesting to when you're really half conscious for a number of years when you first start. It's I don't know how many. I
true.
don't want to say how many years I was half conscious. It took a while to become conscious. I just loved working on the farms because I couldn't play with the kids who worked on the farms in a little one-room schoolhouse I went to, and that town was only 2,500, a long way from all the diversions my father might have been teased by.
Well,
You got to laugh about some things.
you have to laugh about some things. This is true. Well, listen, this is, I think it's good for today that we can end right here because there's been a lot thrown into this discussion about spirituality and how different people handle these sorts of things and how you've done it. And I think we're ending on a good note. So,
Well, 93 years of lessons learned is
wait a
something
minute,
the book is all about.
how many years?
93 years I lived, and now I'm 94.
94.
Of
Just
the
turned
past, on
94.
Easter, I was 94.
There you go.
The
There you go.
20th of April. Same day as Hitler, but a different year. So relax.
Uh, well, listen, Joshua, tell everybody goodbye and that you'll see them
I
later.
have a little fun as I go. Thank the Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Joshua gets going. He can keep on going for hours and talk and tell all kinds of stories. We're going to be looking into a little bit more of his life and subsequent interviews. We're also going to get into how he became interested in handwriting analysis. Uh, he ended up marrying two things and then marrying a third to those. a very, very interesting situation there too. And so right now I am going to say goodbye, and we will talk to y'all later. Bye bye.